Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and the first weekly recap of 2020. Today we're going to focus on AMA Supercross United States. Round 1 was last Saturday night. Hopefully you'll be watching this video on Thursday. This coming Saturday evening will be round 2, so we're going to go through my 2019 predictions, gone wrong, gone right, and my 2020 predictions. Before we get into the 2019 predictions from last year, which was 2019, and 2020 predictions for this upcoming season. I did 15 of these episodes last year, and I talked about everything from AMA Motocross, Supercross to World Superbike, MotoGP, and then a whole bunch of different things that are happening in the industry as far as like news-related items, new bikes, new laws coming out, sound restrictions, all kinds of stuff. If you look at the playlist from last year, you'll notice that I did 15 different episodes, but there's a gap between episode 13 and episode 15, and that's because episode 14 was blocked by YouTube. Okay, let's start off with 2019 predictions I got right, because I like to start on a positive note. But we'll get to the ones I got wrong shortly thereafter. Chad Reed. I predicted Chad Reed would retire. He had a really gnarly crash. Okay, Chad Reed is approaching 40 years old. He's had lots and lots of crashes. In his heyday, when he was fighting for championships, everybody he was fighting against has long since retired. He's still out there doing it, which is pretty amazing. But last year he had a really gnarly crash. The crash was completely his fault. Feet came off the pegs, a little bit of whiskey throttle. It was right after the start, so everybody's grouped together. And quite honestly, he was lucky, in my personal opinion, to walk away from that. And I think that was a reality check. When you're that old, when you've been doing this, as long as he has, you've been through the injuries he has gone through, you're literally one crash away from retirement. And he had that crash last year. He has now announced that this will be his last year of full-time racing. And it's going to be, in terms of finishes, it's going to be a miserable year for him. He didn't even make the top 10. This is a guy who has won 2 championships. I think he won 1 outdoor motocross championship, so like 3 championships together. And even when he wasn't winning the championship, he was like the runner-up for the championship numerous times. So he didn't even make the top 10 last Saturday. He's going to have, again, he's going to have a miserable year in terms of finishes, and I think the only saving grace is he's really just riding to kind of say goodbye to the fans, which he has a lot of fans, a lot of support. Wasn't always the case, but he does now at the end of his career, so hey, that's one I got right. I think that's the only prediction I got right in 2019. Let's go ahead and just jump into all the ones I got wrong, because there's a whole boatload of them. Alright, but before we do that, real quickly, let me explain the classes and the championships for AMA Supercross here in the United States. There's actually 3 championships. There's 450cc, there's 16 rounds, and the 450s race every round. And then there are the 250s, and they split the 250s in half. So half of the 250s race on the east coast of the United States, and the other half race on the west coast of the United States. So there's 2 bike classes, 250s and 450s, but they split the 250s into 2 different championships. And at the end of the year, they get together and they race each other. So it's like east versus west. It's kind of interesting, but it's really confusing for the casual fan. So anyway, let's get into it. Essentially, I predicted that Eli Tomac from Kawasaki would win the 450 title, and that Adam Cianciarulo would win the West Coast title, and that Austin Faulkner would win the East Coast title. So essentially, I picked Team Kawasaki to rule all 3 championships in 2019. And at least in the 250s, both Austin Faulkner and Adam Cianciarulo were leading the championship up until either Austin Faulkner crashed and blew out his knee. He couldn't finish the season. Up until that point, he won every single race. Adam Cianciarulo led the championship for the most part all the way into the very last round, and he crashed on a really simple jump section. Eli Tomac was a little bit different. He choked in the beginning of the season. He took way too long to find his zone. Once he did find his zone, he won lots of races, made everybody look like beginners, but at the end of the day, Eli Tomac choked. Adam Cianciarulo, choked. Austin Forkner, crashed, injured, kind of choked. Team Kawasaki, 2019, one big choke. Okay, 2019's in the past and I'm not bitter at all. 2020, let's look at the top 10 from last Saturday night. Let's start off with Justin Barcia. He won the opening round. So what? He won the opening round last year. Doesn't matter. I don't expect anything different from Justin Barcia this year than what he did last year. That is, he won the opening round. He ran some good races. He was competitive. But eventually he kind of fizzled out. He got hurt, didn't even finish the season. I kind of expect the same this year. Side note, his nickname, Justin Barcia's nickname, is Bam Bam. Let me show you why. So in this clip, Justin Barcia is leading the race, makes a mistake, runs off the track, and gets passed by Adam Cianciarulo, who's in a close second. It looks like Barcia re-enters the track, kind of almost goes for Adam and tries to take him out. Now, I don't really believe that because if he wanted to, he could have. He had the opportunity. But I think really he went in there to try and intimidate and scare Adam Cianciarulo. But Bam Bam, or Justin Barcia, Bam Bam is his affectionate name. He has been known for really hard passes and, some questionable or dirty passes, if you will, throughout his career on the 250s and the 450s. Adam Cianciarulo. Adam's a really good rider. I think the big bike is going to suit him well. This is his rookie year on the big bike. He almost won round one. It came down to just last minute mistakes, which Adam has a history of choking. Check out this post-race win from this post-race interview from, what's the dude's name? Cooper Webb. He won the championship last year. How did I not remember his name? It's actually right in front of me on the screen here. Check it out.
All right, Cooper. So you're sitting on the line, you're watching the 250 class, and unfortunately we see what happens to Adam. In the heat race, you and Eli were going at it. You were really aggressive. Like, you wanted to win that race. It was very clear. So you're sitting on the line, you see what happens to AC. Do you think maybe I don't need to be so aggressive in this main event? Just let's settle in and not worry about where I finish?
No. He cracked. I didn't.
So that choke reference, that comment that he cracked, I didn't, that was in reference to Adam Cianciarulo, who had the championship in hand. He didn't need to win the last race of the season. All he needed to do was finish in the position that he was at, and he literally, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, he choked on a jump section that I'm pretty sure I could have done. But the jitters got to him, and he made a mistake, and it was enough for him to lose the championship. So that's the reference of Cooper Webb was referring to when he said that he choked and I didn't. Cooper Webb was a great 250cc rider, another kind of like a Justin Barcia who had a great 250cc career, moved up to the 450cc bikes, and he had 2 seasons, 2 years of just injuries and dismal results, and he was not the same dude you saw on the small bikes. He won multiple Supercross championships. He won a motocross championship. He was a multi-time championship winning. I mean, he was good. He was fast. He was good. He was dominant. Moved up to the big bikes. Couldn't cut it. Then last year, coming into the 2019 season, he changed bikes. He went from Yamaha to KTM. He changed trainers. And he started off the season kind of the same way. It was like, same old Cooper Webb, not going to do it. But then in race 2, race 3, he turned things around, and then that was it. That was just from that point on, he was Mr. Consistent. He won the most races, I think 7 races. Eli Tomac was the next closest to him, 6 races. I think it's a 17, 18 race series. So between those two dudes, they won a lot of races. But even when he wasn't winning races, and this is the key part to winning a championship, he still found a way to either get on the podium or at a minimum, he was in the top 5, right? So even on his bad nights, he was still collecting a lot of championship points. He ended up winning the championship. He's starting off the season in 2020 the same way he left it off in 2019, right? He comes in, qualified horrible. I think he was 15th in qualifying, which is just terrible for a defending champion. He had an okay heat race, but come to the main event, sick with the flu, high temperatures, hardly talking in his interviews. He gets a decent start. He finds his way on the podium, collects 3rd place. That's a solid start to the championship, even if you're not sick, let alone when you are sick. He's got to be the heavy favorite to win the championship again. All right, Blake Baggett, 4th place, not bad for him. That's actually a good opening round. Don't expect big things. He might win a race. He'll have his nights. He'll be competitive here and there. Couple of podiums. That's about it. Nothing else from Blake Baggett. Not in Supercross. Motocross, different thing. We'll see. All right, Jason Anderson, the 2018 championship, just like Cooper Webb. In 2018, he wasn't always the best dude. He wasn't always the fastest dude. He was fast. Don't get me wrong. You don't win a championship without being fast. But he managed to be consistent in 2018. He won when he could, and he did the best that he could on the nights when it wasn't going 100% his way. That's what you got to do to be a champion. That's what you got to do to win a championship. You can't just be the fastest dude who just clearly just is leagues and bounds better than everybody else, but then finishes 10th. You know, you can't do that. You need to be on the box almost every single night, and if you're not on the box, you need to at least be in the top 5, and you can't have too many of those. 1 or 2 top 5s every other night. You got to be on the box. You don't need to win every night. 2nd and 3rds are okay. Jason Anderson did that in 2018, won the championship. He came into last year, he had an early season injury, so he missed like the first half of the season. The second half of the season was just him getting back into racing form. I don't care what anybody says. Nothing can duplicate racing, right? So if you haven't raced in 6 months or a year, there's nothing you can do to prepare for racing. You have to go race. That's the only thing that you can do. You can do all the training in the gym, all the cardio outside, all the practice track training. You're never going to be in race shape if you're not racing, right? So when you miss the first half of the season, the second half of the season is just you getting up to speed, really. So this year, 2020, I'm sure Jason Anderson is hungry after being off for injury and then just spending the rest of the racing season getting back up to speed, finding that edge. I expect Jason Anderson to win some races, be on the podium a lot, be up front and battling. I don't think he's going to win the championship. I think there's some other hungry people that we're going to get to here in a minute. Okay, Ken Roczen finished 6th. It's an okay start for Ken Roczen. I expect a little bit more. He was running a little bit farther up front early on in the race last night. But here's the deal. Ken Roczen had the most gnarliest injury I've ever seen. Dude, I'm old. I've been watching Supercross for a very long time. The dude, Ken Roczen, almost lost his arm in a crash. The injuries were so bad. He was very, very close to getting that amputated. But he survived through multiple surgeries. Rehab, I don't even want to think about. He came back. But this is his 3rd season since that injury. The last 2 seasons, he's been winless. He's been super, super close to winning a race many times. But I think this season, his 3rd season, he will not be denied. I just don't see Ken Roczen going a 3rd season winless. I think at a certain point, maybe 3 or 4 races from now, if he hasn't won a race, he's going to go into a crash or win mode, and I think he's going to win. He's going to win races. I think he's going to be a contender for the championship this year. I think he's done waiting. I think he's done being patient, and it's this year or not at all. All right, number 7, Eli Tomac. I can't believe he finished 7th last night. So here's the deal with Eli Tomac. If you haven't been keeping up with Supercross the last few years, Eli Tomac easily is the most talented, fastest guy out there. And you're like, but he finished 7th. What are you talking about, monkey butt? Look, Eli's problem hasn't been his talent or his speed. It's been a consistency issue. He has nights where he's like James Stewart. Just epic speed, epic rhythm sections. He's had nights where he just makes everybody else out there look like they're C-class riders, beginners, okay? And this is a class of some of the top professionals in the world racing Supercross, and Tomac, he can have nights where he makes them all look like beginners. And then he has nights like last night where, you know, 7th place, that's the best he could do. I'm sticking with Eli. My prediction is he's going to win the 2020 season. In my personal opinion, he's been the best dude the last 3 years. But his problem has been consistency. When he has a bad night, it's a really bad night, and he loses too many points. Your bad nights, if you want to win a championship, your bad nights need to be 5th. Nothing worse than that. That said, we've seen a number of riders over the last decade or two who have won the championship with a DNF. James Stewart did it in 2009. Ricky Carmichael did it in 2006. It is possible. 7th place is not the worst thing to happen, but he cannot continue to flounder around being a 7th or 5th place dude and then try and just smoke everybody the rest of the season. He needs to find the consistency that Webb had last year. If he finds the consistency and then on his good nights he blows everybody away, he'll be the championship winner in 2020. All right, we're gonna skip over Justin Brayton. I have a huge amount of respect for the dude. I think he just turned 40, or he's 40 years old. The dude's kicking butt, but the reality is he's not gonna win the championship. He'll get some podiums, might win a race, doubtful. And then we're not gonna talk about number 10, Vince Friese, waste of oxygen. Don't like that dude. I'm just not going to talk about him. All right, what we will do is we'll talk about 9th place, because I'm genuinely surprised, but then also not surprised. Malcolm Stewart got 9th. So, last year Malcolm Stewart showed a lot of speed early on in the season. Unfortunately, he had a really bad crash and broke a femur. So if you don't know what a femur is, that is the biggest bone in your body. It is the leg bone between your hip and your knee. He broke that sucker last year. I think it was round 2. I'm not sure. However, that said, he has come back for another season, and I saw him in an interview earlier in the year, late last year, really. And he looked super lean, the leanest I've ever seen him. So Malcolm Stewart, he's a bigger kind of dude, and he's always been a little bit on the heavier side or chubby side. And I saw him in this interview. You could just see it in his face, like everything, his chin bone. I mean, the dude looked as lean as I've ever seen him. I think he's motivated more than anything else. And I just gotta believe that race 1 was just, you know, coming back from the femur break that he had in 2019. He just had to be super nervous. He got a horrible start. I expect bigger things from Malcolm Stewart in the future. I think he's easily going to make a podium or 2, possibly win a race. I don't see him being a championship contender. I don't see him being the dude for the long haul, although he's won a championship in the lights class. I just don't see him. I don't see him doing it against Cooper Webb. I don't see him doing it against Eli Tomac. But I do see him doing way better than he did last night. Again, I'm going to call it now. He will win one race this season with 2 to 3 podium finishes.
Okay, it's time for the predictions. Prediction number 1, Eli Tomac will be your 2020 Supercross champion. And I'm going to caveat that with, if he doesn't get it done this year, he's never going to win it. He will end his career without a single Supercross champion, which actually just blows my mind. But especially if you add to that he's won the last 3 motocross championships, you know, the great outdoors. He's a beast outdoors, and I think he's going to win his 4th in a row this year. And it's mind-boggling that he would not win a Supercross title throughout his whole career. I think in 2018 and 2019, he was far and away the most talented, fastest rider, but the inconsistency, his bad nights, he gave up way too many points to Webb in 2019 last year, and he gave up way too many points on his bad nights to Dungey in 2018. I would almost say he was the fastest guy in 2017 as well, but I really think that was Ken Roczen. Ken Roczen was on a whole nother level in 2017 until his devastating crash and injury, but it is what it is. 2020, Eli Tomac will be your 450 Supercross champion. Prediction number 2! Chad Reed won't make the top 5 all year long. Last year I predicted he wouldn't make the top 3, and he kind of sort of did at a Triple Crown event, which I don't know. I think that's kind of like cheating. But it is what it is. Technically, he made the podium, and it was at a Triple Crown event. But this year, he doesn't have the bike that he had last year. Doesn't have the support that he had last year. And, I mean, he almost didn't even make the main event at Anaheim 1. So, with all that said, I feel comfortable predicting that Chad Reed won't make the top 5 all year long. I think it's the deepest field that we've had in recent years, and it's just going to be way too tough without a couple of guys getting injured and dropping out of the championship. I just don't see Chad making the top 5, period. Last and final prediction! Top 5 championship standings. Eli Tomac obviously on the top, number 1. Ken Roczen, number 2. Cooper Webb, number 3. Adam Cianciarulo, number 4. Jason Anderson, number 5. There you go. That's the top 5 championship standings for 2020. That's all I got, guys. We'll see you next week, hopefully before Friday night. But, yeah, shit happens, man. See you guys later. Bye.
Look at that line, that's what I'm talking about. Got awesome lines. Knows how to flow.